Welcome to the course Environmental Impact Assessments. In today's session, we are going to look at the follow-up where we do monitoring and auditing after the decision. So if you recollect, we are in what we covered in the previous lecture, we looked at this right-hand box of public consultation and participation, as well as the third box where we looked at the presentation of the findings in environmental impact assessment, and then we looked at the how we review, examine the EIA report, and how the decision making happens, and that we saw it from the Indian context. So today we'll look at the last box here, and with this we'll be finishing our EIA process part. So we'll look at how we do follow up. So we have made decision whether the project has to be done or not, and then now project is executed, and it starts functioning. So the most another important part is about the post decision monitoring. How do we really monitor what we had predicted, and what we have committed to undertake, with all the terms and conditions which we talked about in the previous class. So we audit the various prediction and then the mitigation measures what we have said about taking. So if you look at EIA, in principle, it is not just about the decision making or furnishing information for decision making, but it's also the continuous process of improving our approach, improving our understanding how to address to the environmental risks. So we talked about range of environmental problems and risks. So EIA is just one part of it, where we, based on that, we make decision whether we have to go ahead with the project or not. But it's not just that, but in the process you also keep learning and seeing that how that process can be further improved, and various elements, the policy elements, can be changed in that. So it is important to keep testing the prediction we have made. So we had made a lot of prediction in the report, what will happen, what not will happen. And it's important that after this, when the project is approved with certain terms and condition, it's important to monitor it, to follow up and find out what was predicted was in line or not, and what commitment terms and conditions they had committed for, whether they are following or not. So it's an important part, but then it's not really implemented very well. And this monitoring and auditing, where you monitor an auditor, is audits the project and its impact. It's also called as EIA follow-up. And it's important because it helps improving the planning of EIA and future projects. So learning from all these projects help us to improve our process, eventually how to handle all the projects through EIA process. So, and it not only helps in like the project one stage, but it helps us to understand all the stages. So looking at the coverage, today we're going to look at the key elements of EIA follow-up. We'll look at certain definitions, then we'll look at what kind of questions we look at when we do follow-up, what we really look at the project when it's executing and when it's functional, and then what are the monitoring practices at the international level. Then we'll look at how the developing countries' experiences have been, and then we'll just very, very briefly touch upon some of the case studies. So the expected learning outcomes is that you should be able to identify key elements of EIA follow-up. So what are the key elements of follow-up? And then you should be able to define and differentiate what is monitoring, what is auditing, and what is reporting, and so on. And you should be able to ask key questions for follow-up, like what really I need to look for. And then you should be able to discuss international monitoring practice, like what's really happening. And then you should be able to review the developing countries' experiences, like what challenges they are facing or how well they have been able to do. And then I'll just quickly give you links and tell about one or two case studies here. So here in the table, you can see the key elements of EIA follow-up, which has been, and we see that key elements from the project proponents' perspective, like the people who do the EIA and people who are bringing up the project. So what's the really benefit of follow-up with that? So you see that one is the monitoring part, and monitoring allows the confirmation. So it allows the confirmation, like it allows them to confirm whatever they had predicted, and what standards they have been following. So that allows them to confirm. So in this stage, you do the data collection, you compare with these standards, you show that it is as per the prediction or expectations, and it also provides proof of technology. So whatever technology you have adopted, it shows that it's working or not working. And then you also see monitoring for compliance post decision. So after the decision also, it helps you to align with that. And then it also helps you to evaluate, and it helps you to generate future knowledge. So the appraisal, the review will allow you to understand how the mitigation is working or not, and are we able to keep up with the standards or not, and what kind of predictions and expectations have happened. So it also further allows you for the management, and it allows you for further functioning and licensing purpose, and what things to avoid. So you develop those kind of things. It allows you for communication, like how well you are taken care of, communicates with the stakeholders and all authorities, that how the good practices can take care of the sustainable development aspect. So that's the key elements, like what we see is like what kind of benefit one has because of the follow-up. So now looking at some of the definitions. So one is monitoring. What do we really mean by monitoring? Monitoring is where you measure, where you take account and you record all the variables. So like you said, you wanted to, you had claimed about the air quality, water quality, noise level, what kind of traffic you will generate. So you're going to measure that. So you're going to take care of the what air quality is there. You will regularly maintain on maybe daily basis, hourly basis, water quality, noise level, and then traffic generated, what kind of employment you have created at various stages. So you're going to record all those things. So that's like, and taking those recording is monitoring, and you would be collecting data in large quantity. Just think of data which you will be collecting, and you will be collecting in a very systematic manner for a very long period of time. So through monitoring, we are able to see how these parameters behave. So you will see like where air quality is going up or down, water quality is going up or down, and how it's happening in a given context. So it's add values to our understanding, knowledge which we have, and to what scale the impact is happening, how far the air pollution is happening, how far water quality is improving or deteriorating. So the monitoring helps to improve the project management, and it also helps in creating a protection system and also creating a response system. So there's another term which we see is the environmental impact auditing, or we also say evaluation. So this involves comparing the impacts predicted. So what you had predicted in your report to the actual after implementation. So you predicted this would be the air quality. Now you check after implementation, what's the air quality? It's better or worse. So that is what you do, environmental impact auditing. And this helps to evaluate how was the impact prediction, how accurate the impact prediction was. It also helps us to know how good the mitigation measures are working. So not only like your prediction part, but what mitigation, what measures you're taking to cut down those kind of impact, how well they are working. So it also helps you to take care of that. You find another term, which is environmental management auditing. So in that, you see that environmental managing auditing, you review public and private corporate pattern, like it is done at a larger scale, where you look at all the policies and programs, and you see how the environment management is being done, and then what kind of risk and what kind of responsibilities, liabilities are there. So that's about the environmental management auditing. So we see another term, which is implementation monitoring. So this involves checking that the project has been implemented in accordance with the planning approval. So whatever terms and conditions you had given, so whether the proponents are implementing project in that manner or not. So and then also what mitigation measures, what they had said they would take care of, are they being carried out or not. So that all is implementation monitoring. So that was about some of the key terms. Now we're going to see, like, when you do follow up, when you do monitoring and auditing, what kind of questions do you really look into? So like you'll be collecting a lot of data. So what kind of data should be included? So like if you are using indicators, so you have to take ambient air quality, you have to take noise level, the size of workforce, and range of impacts which we had talked about. So you can have indicators for that, and you can connect. Further, it is suggested that not only those biophysical impact, but other causal factors, all those need to be taken care of, like how many what decisions you have been making, what kind of policy changes you have been making, and then how changing those decisions and policy can also change the indicators. So that's all also need to be taken care of. Plus, you also need to take care of the social aspects, because in the EIA report, you look into several impacts. So that even those aspects, not just the geophysical aspect, but social aspect also needs to be taken care of in the monitoring, and even people's perception, how they're perceiving. Because if you keep track of people's perception, it helps them to improve their support, improve the understanding and create awareness. So even that should be taken care of. And then how you should undertake these studies, how you should carry out all these studies. And if you'll see, monitoring and auditing is very integral part of EIA. And it is advisable that you keep this in mind from the very beginning. So at every stage, you make provision for monitoring and auditing, so that you are able to monitor and audit at the later stage when the project is being executed. And it's very important that monitoring and auditing has very clear objectives, and you know that what has to be done, and need to have clear idea of what time period you will need, for how many, you have to collect data in every 3 months, or you have to collect data every day, how you have to collect and how you're going to monitor. So all that needs to be seen. And you also need to have clear understanding of all methods for data collection. So how I'm going to collect the data, so from where I'm going to collect the data, so like what methods and equipments I'm going to use. So you will see that with various sectors in India, EIA sectorial manual provides you all the methods for data collection purpose. So looking at who should undertake such studies, so you need to develop partnership with various stakeholders. So you can have research institutions who can undertake studies, and then you can have local authorities who can undertake certain things, and you can also have local community who can be involved in data collection and reviewing the process. And many a times you will see that depending on the context, monitoring may not be mandatory, or can be optional as well. And in India, it is mandatory as per the notification of 2006. So monitoring is mandatory. So you can see the post environmental clearance 10.2 and 3, which gives you clear understanding that it's a mandatory process, and then you need to submit half-yearly compliance report, and then the document has to be made available for public and has to be displayed on website of the regulatory authority. So that all has to be undertaken. And as you see that EIA is dependent on context, so even monitoring and auditing is dependent on the context. So it varies from place to place, context to context. And looking at the components of monitoring, it involves certain things. So like you see summary of the significant impact, like what are the impacts which were identified and what kind of mitigation measures were recommended for each significant impact. So what kind of mitigation measures, like what impact we found out and what kind of mitigation measures we took, and then what kind of monitoring requirements are there. So how you would monitor those requirements, and who will be the responsible agencies, and what kind of mitigation measure would be taken for that. And then what agency or person will be responsible for monitoring and of the mitigation measures. So who will monitor what mitigation measures you had suggested and how that would be monitored. And then you would be looking at the timing and frequency of monitoring, how frequently you would be doing it, twice in a year, regular basis, how you will be doing. And then the agency responsible for ensuring that the project complies with what they have committed for. So that's about the components of monitoring. And then now looking at some of the international monitoring practice, it has been recently added in EU and UK. It was not mandatory, but it has been added. You will see that a few countries, regions, it is mandatory. So you see in Canada, you see in Western Australia. So they have follow up where they need to compliance. They have compliance auditing and environmental monitoring provision. When you look at US, say NEPA, so they have Council on Environmental Quality, CEQ. So they have issued guidance that the EIA report must include monitoring of the implementation and effectiveness of mitigation commitments. So whatever commitment project proponents have made, it has to be implemented. And then monitoring information must be made available to the public. So it has to be not only made, but it has to be made available to the public. And they have these CEQ guidance recommends that agency should identify source of monitoring funding in their proposal, and then also identify performance standards for mitigation measures. So what will be the performance standards for that? So that all has to be expressed. So in the figure here, you see that it provides example of key elements of monitoring program and all the reporting plan. So you can see here, this is from California Monitoring Program. Here you can see how mitigation measures are recommended. So you can see the traffic, noise, drainage, air quality on the column side. And you can see on the upper side, on the right hand side, responsible party for mitigation. Then you can see the frequency, then you can see agency responsible for retaining monitoring forms, who will really keep the data. So see that's one of the good practice from California, you can see here. Then likewise you can see from Hong Kong, they have developed a very systematic, comprehensive environmental monitoring and auditing system for all their major projects. And then they have technical memorandum for EIA, which gives key steps for environmental monitoring and auditing. So you can see their monitoring task and what kind of report has to be undertaken, and then what kind of approval is required and what kind of frequency in which they have to collect. So you can see here. And then you also find number of UK public agencies undertake monitoring of particular pollutants, so you need not really do it for your project. Local planning authorities also monitor some of the condition attached with the development permissions. So in our case, we'll see CPCB, SPCB, they collect a lot of data, monitor a lot of data. And that was about some of the countries, looking into developing countries' experiences. There have been a lot of challenges in monitoring, implementing monitoring in developing countries, and because of the cost of the study involved. And then there's also problem about relevant data and information, how much data and information is really available, and how aware the public is, and how involved the public is, and then and how one can really enforce the decision. And we see that Ghana shows some good practices. We also see in Ecuador, they have developed a monitoring mechanism, which is like self-monitoring. It takes care of the environmental control, environmental auditing, and supervision is also provided. An audit performed by consultants, provision is made for that as well. So that was about monitoring. Now looking at the auditing practice. So there are lots of types for auditing, and as provided by our textbook, which we are referring. So we see decision point audit, which is like when we look at it at the draft EIA stage, and then and which is done by the regulatory authority in the approval process. Then you also have decision point audit, which is like final at the stage of final EIA. It's also done by the regulatory authority. And then you see implementation audit, which is like done scrutiny done by the government or the public to ensure that what has been committed, that has been implemented, they are complying by it or not. Then you also see performance audit. So where you see the overall performance of the project, it could also include government and public here. Then you also have predictive technique audits. So whatever technique you use for making the prediction, so you also check how effective those predictive techniques were there. And then you also do project impact audits. So you compare the actual project to the predicted impact, and then you see how was the prediction and how is the actual. And then you also see the procedure audit, in which the external review is done to check the procedure. It can be done by the government or the industry for that. So there are a lot of challenges with the nature of impact prediction which has been done. So a lot of impact predictions give very descriptive information. So it's very difficult to test them. May not really give numbers which can be verified. And because of their vague and more of a qualitative assessment, it cannot be really tested. And also there can be modifications which can also invalidate the prediction. And then sometimes there is inconsistency in the data. Sometimes the monitoring data and technique are inadequate for the auditing purpose. And what kind of data has been collected, it's not sufficient. So that also creates a lot of problems in actually implementing auditing. And then many auditing studies are concerned only with certain types of impacts. So they really do not look at all the impacts. So it also makes it very subject specific. And in a lot of places there is like now recent auditing are come with very detail about the criteria and methods what they have used, and then some of them do not, so it becomes difficult to compare, and it also creates challenges for interpretation aspect. Such problems have in many instances have limited EIA process to meet its objectives. So we really do not know whether the EIA, what process we did, is really protecting our environment or not. So I have given you a lot of examples in the suggested watch, which you can see about different projects where there were differences in what was predicted and what really actually happened on site. Where all audit was possible, it was also seen that either EIA report was overestimating or underestimating, so prediction was not really up to mark. And we see further one case study where EIA auditing has been done, which is mostly taking care of the socio-economic impact rather than just the physical impact. So that's about the Sizewell B PWR construction projects, which was done by Impact Assessment Unit, Oxford Brookes University. So they had undertaken this assessment auditing. So they had studied the impacts of number of powered stations and made contribution to the understanding of the EIA system, and they focused mostly on the socioeconomic impact. They stated clear objectives of the study. In image, you can see the scope of the study. So how they have the project locality, what different stages, planning, construction, operations are there, and then issue about employment, expenditure, social services, housing, what kind of impacts and causal factors. So that all they had a clear objective, like really what they want to review. The monitoring study included collection of range of information, and these were like statistical data, and then these statistical data included like how many workers were employed at the construction stage, how many housings were created, what kind of expenditure was made. And they also had a spatial scope. So when you're reviewing, you need to define for how much area you would really assess the impact for. So study included information from the developer and the main contractor on site, and then also relevant authorities, and then also public agencies. And then they also came out with the findings on like what was the employment scenario, what they had projected, and what really happened, what was the local economy because of this project, and then what is the housing scenario, what's the traffic and noise scenario, crime and residents' perception. So in the EIA report, they would predict, and in this auditing, they would check how it is going with the prediction and what's the actual there. So they also documented the learning from the auditing process. So in that, they also showed that how they could really take care of different things while auditing is undertaken. So in this image, you can see what they had predicted, nature of prediction, to like what kind of what was actually happening while the auditing was done. In the on this right hand side table, you can see. So I've given you the link to this particular study. Then you can also see another UK case study where the monitoring of local impact was done for London 2012 Olympic projects. It was a very big project at that time. So in this project, they evolved a framework for monitoring of biophysical and socioeconomic impact of the project. So you can see here how they're looking at the life cycle of the impacts for the London Olympics, and then range of impacts, and then how it is taking care of the pre-Olympic construction phase, Olympic Games phase, post-Olympics construction phase, and post-Olympic phase. So how things are happening. So that all framework was developed, and they did the construction stage monitoring, and then they had all the parameters, what to monitor, when to monitor, how to monitor. And you can see here construction noise monitoring methods, monitoring information they had. Here you can see some of the monthly socioeconomic monitoring characteristic of the construction workforce. So you can see what kind of workforce it was creating. So so you can see here what kind of framework have been developed. So that's all for today. So summarizing what we covered in this particular session, and with this session we'll be finishing EIA process part. So here we saw the key elements of EIA follow-up, what's the purpose and what's the benefit of that, and then we defined and differentiated between monitoring, auditing, and reporting. Then we looked at what key questions we have to look into when we do follow-up. Then we looked at some of the international monitoring practice, and then what's the real challenges in developing countries related with follow-up. And then I just gave you links and brief on the 2 case studies to understand different formats and how the reviews can be done. So that was all for today, and then this is our key textbook which we are referring to, and these are the suggested watch and reads because our coverage is very limited. So you can read more if you're interested and explore further. Please feel free to ask questions. Let us know about any concerns you have. To share your opinions, experiences, and suggestions. Looking forward to interacting and co-learning with you while exploring AIA. Thank you.